So come in nice and close. Yep. So obviously, first up, thanks a lot to the club for having me. A little bit about myself so you know who's talking to you. I grew up in Alice Springs. I had a big dream of playing for Australia one day. I didn't quite make that, but I've been very fortunate to have a great life out of cricket. I've played first grade cricket here in Perth for nearly 15 years, over 200 games. I played professionally in England. I've had 7 years in England playing cricket. Cricket has been my life, and now for the last 5 years I've been running my business, Cricket Mentoring, based here in Perth, out of Mulman's Cricket Centre and Perth Cricket Club. But I've been fortunate to travel around. I've been to England coaching, I've been to India coaching, and we've built quite a big online following. We've got a few 100,000 followers on our platforms on the back of these ideas and concepts I'm going to share today. So that's a really brief sort of bit about me, but what we're going to try and do is give you some ideas and concepts that you can go away and practice to make you all better cricketers. So I'm going to try and simplify everything so that the kids can understand it, but also you adults who aren't cricketers can also help implement some of these ideas. So first of all, we talk at Cricket Mentoring about there's 6 pillars of success, and I believe this is true not just in batting, not just in cricket, but sort of in life in general. There's the technical, there's the tactical, there's the mental, there's the emotional, there's the physical, and then your lifestyle. Not so much at this age, but as you get older, things like sleep, diet, hydration all contribute to how you show up and then how you perform. So today we're going to talk about technique primarily, because technique is the foundation of your game as a cricketer, as a batter. Technical and tactical are sort of sport or you're sort of cricket based, and when you sort of leave the cricket nets they stay here. Whereas the mental and emotional skills you can take anywhere. You can take them into the classroom, into the workplace. Your physical, the fitter you are, the healthier you are, the better you feel anywhere. And then lifestyle, they're all just good habits and behaviours to have anyway. But we're going to talk the foundations today of technique. I'll save some time at the end for questions, but if anyone has questions along the way, please feel free to put your hand up and I can stop and answer your question in the moment if we're talking about a certain thing. And there's no such thing as a silly question. For you kids, I think one of the great ways to learn is to ask questions. If you're unsure of something, just ask. And yeah, there's no such thing as silly questions. So the goal of batting, no matter what level you play, the goal of batting is to score runs. How do we score runs? You hit the ball in the gaps. And then you run. You can hit boundaries, but that's the sort of simplified batting. So what we're going to try and do is set our game up with our technique to be able to efficiently hit the ball in the gaps as consistently as we can. The best players have a consistent technique. We're trying to get in positions that are repeatable, that are consistent, so we can efficiently hit the ball in gaps. And I think 2 questions we should ask ourselves after a shot, which determines whether it was a good shot, and this is simplifying it again, is did it go where I wanted it to go? And did it have power? And if you can answer yes to both of those 2 things, then you've hit a good shot. Without getting, where's my foot, where's my head, where's my shoulder? Because we can get very technical and very overcomplicate things. Yeah, so that's just a bit of an overview on what technique is, what batting is, etc. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about the fundamentals of technique. Now you kids have all grown up with Big Bash cricket all over the TV, so that's all about 4s and 6s. But your parents and I, we grew up watching a bit more Test cricket, and I believe that you want to try, if you want to be the best player you can possibly be, you want to try and set your game to be able to play all 3 formats. Test cricket, one day cricket, T20. In my opinion, the best players have really sound techniques, really good fundamentals. They can play Test cricket where the ball swings and seams and moves, and they can also go and play T20 cricket. But the guys who are really good hitters, they can make a lot of money in T20 cricket, there's not much wrong with that, but they often struggle when the ball moves because they don't have as good fundamentals, basics. So Cricket Mentoring, my belief, and my team, we've got a few coaches that work for me now, we all spend a lot of time focusing on the fundamentals, the basics of batting with all of our players of all levels. I do a little bit of coaching with Josh Philippi, who's in the Australian team, and John Wells, who plays for the Adelaide Strikers in the Big Bash. And they are constantly working on the basics. I think it was funny, I was coaching a boy named Teague Wiley a few days ago. He's probably going to play for Australia one day. He's in the Australian under-19 squad. And we were doing underarm feeds. Slow underarm feeds, and he was waiting for him and practicing his technique and doing the basics. In the next door were some guys who were nowhere near his level, trying to face 70 mile an hour on the bowling machine and missing every second ball, and they were just wasting their time, in my opinion. So for me, there's no such thing as being too good for the basics, and that's what I'm all about. So we're going to talk about is the basics, the fundamentals of technique, which is what creates repeatable, consistent movement patterns. Any questions? Any questions about that little 10-minute spiel? Anything? You got anything to add, bruh? Okay, yep.
Your basics in your role, will they be the same as the next basics that some other bloke might come out with?
Yes, I think so, to an extent. I think, yeah, we'll get into like the basics, but everyone has their own slight method. I try and prescribe to the old school side-on method, which we'll talk about in a minute. Some people go the other way and sort of have this idea of front-on, but I think that's flawed in my opinion. Now, everything I say is my opinion. It's not gospel. I just pass on what I know at this point in time. My opinion is often changing when I get more information. I'm not perfect. I'm not a guru. I'm just someone who's a student of the game, and I constantly am trying to learn and watch and study the best and pass those messages on to you guys. And I'm very fortunate that one of my best friends is Chris Rogers, who opened the batting for Australia. He's played over 300 first-class games, scored 75 first-class hundreds, is now the head coach of Victoria, and I speak to him. I was on the phone to him 10 minutes ago, speak to him all the time about batting. So a lot of what I talk about comes from his ideas from playing at the highest level. So, if no more questions, I believe batting is a side-on sort of game. So it's a bit silly really. We face this way and then we turn our head and the bowler comes from there. There are sort of abbreviations to that, and these days some players are sort of getting a bit more funky and unconventional, but generally we start with our toes and our hips and our shoulders facing towards point. Okay? The most important thing, and this is where so many players go wrong, is that we fall over, because all of our weight's going that way, we fall over to the offside, and when we're going this way, we can't come back. We keep going that way. And our human instinct, we won't fall flat on our face, we'll never let ourselves fall on our face, so our head falls, and then our foot goes with it, and we can't then come back. And if they only get one thing technically today, that's the biggest reason people can't hit a straight ball. You see the world's best players, they score so many runs off their legs, but it's one of the biggest things, and they find it quite easy, but it's one of the biggest things that holds young batters back is the straight ball, or young batters struggle with the straight ball, generally for two reasons. We're getting into some problems straight away here. First one I've already said, where we fall over, and then we land over here and the ball's there and we can't really get a good swing at it. The second reason is we take a big step to the ball and our leg gets in the way. Okay, hold that thought. I'm going to come back to that in a second. So we want to be side on. Head's going down the wicket, and we want to be as still as we possibly can be when the ball's bowled. You can move. You see players who do a trigger movement. Some players sort of are a bit funky before. You can do whatever you want before the ball's bowled, but just as it's being released, in those moments just before and just after, we want to try and be as still as we can and not falling that way. I've never seen someone, when we set up like this, I've never seen anyone fall this way. It's always our weight wants to go that way, so we're trying hard to keep our head as still as we possibly can. Does that make sense?